You're now tuned into the Real Rap Radio Show. I'm your host, Walil Archer on Downtown Radio. I'm my special guest. I have Tracey Lyons Tozier. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Walil.
So we're going to talk about three different books, and you also have a fourth one coming out.
Yes.
So let's start with your first book.
Mhm.
What's the title of your first book?
Okay. The first book is called Benny Speaks Up. And this is what the cover looks like. This book is for parents to read to their children. They all are for parents to read to their children. And it teaches the parents how to teach the children how to advocate for themselves at school to get what they need for their education, even with teachers and with principals. It's a pretty universal book. Every kid needs to know how to advocate for themselves and stand up for themselves, right?
Correct, correct. Now, when Benny Speaks Up, how did you come up with that title?
Well, Ben is my son's name, and he's 26 years old now, and in earning his bachelor's degree in biology. But he has autism and all of the specific learning disabilities in reading, written expression, and math. And when he was younger, he had pretty bad executive functioning problems, which is just a fancy way of saying the boy couldn't organize his way out of a paper bag. so teaching him to advocate for himself was something that I had to do very early on in his life. And we had to work on not being timid and silent, but not being angry and aggressive, hitting that calm and assertive place. And that's what I have Mama Bulldog teach to little Benny in the book.
And how many chapters is in that book?
It's just one chapter. It's just a children's book. It's got about 30 pages, but the pages don't have a whole lot of writing on each page. So takes about 10 minutes to read, maybe.
Okay. Now, out of that book, what would you say is the most memorable moment from writing that book?
Well, apart from having the idea to do it and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. And I found a publisher and and an illustrator, and this is going to happen. Apart from that, I really teared up when I wrote the ending, because throughout the book, Mama Bulldog teases Benny and calls him puppy dog, which is something I used to call my son. And at the end, when he has successfully advocated for himself, and he says, I'm going to do my homework before I go outside to play, Mama Bulldog says, go for it, Bulldog. And he turns and he goes, don't you mean puppy dog? And she says, no, son, I mean Bulldog. Because he grew up a little bit.
Nice. And who designed the book cover for you?
That was my illustrator. She's an award-winning children's book illustrator. Her name is Jen Novak. And she's done the illustrations for all 4 of my books.
Nice.
I've got 3 out, but one is coming out in just a couple weeks.
Okay. And let's talk about the second book.
Yes. The second book is called Fiona Finds What's Fair. And this has been the best-selling of the 3 books. Fiona is my daughter's name. And the stories in this book, it's also just one chapter book, not a chapter book, just one children's book. And takes about 10 or 15 minutes to read. But these stories are ripped straight out of Fiona's and my experience together with school. The principal at her middle school says she's going to take away Fiona's 504 plan. And Mama Bulldog Mama Bulldog says, I don't think so. And she goes to the superintendent of the district and talks to him. And he says, well, why don't we test her? Why don't we give her a psychological test to see if she qualifies for a Section 504 plan, which is, that's a plan for children in public schools governed by the Office of Civil Rights, which kind of doesn't exist anymore. Oh my God. But it's based in the Section 504 of the Civil Rights Act of 1973 that says you can't discriminate against children in schools because they have learning disabilities. And it provides for in the classroom accommodations, or accommodations that don't involve modifying the work in any way, shape, or form, but kids can get extra time on tests, maybe even a separate setting that's quieter if they need that, preferential seating close to the teacher, away from distractions, if they need a special pencil grip or anything that they can just use in the classroom that can be covered by a Section 504 plan, as opposed to an individual education plan, which provides specially designed instruction, and you can modify the kids' curriculum based on their needs.
Now, what do you want the readers to take away from reading this book?
The big lesson in this book is fair is everybody getting what they need to learn, not everybody getting exactly the same thing. Because after Mama Bulldog gets to keep Fiona's 504 plan, Chucky Chihuahua stands up in class and says, "It's not fair. Fiona and Abby get to leave class early and they get extra time to take tests. We don't get that. That's not fair." And Fiona uses some really fun examples that most kids could relate to explain why it is fair. Like, what about when George Greyhound broke his leg and he needed extra time to get to class and he had to have somebody carry his books for him? What if he hadn't been able to do that? He would have been out of school for like 2 months. Or what if Mr. Wolfhound, the teacher, ordered pizza for lunch, but Billy can't eat cheese, it makes him sick. Should Billy just not eat lunch that day? So she uses some examples like that. And finally, Charlie Chihuahua, and she explains, I have dyslexia, so I don't read or write as fast as most kids do. So I take longer to process the information and think of my answer and get it down on paper. So that's why I get extra time. Abby has ADHD. She needs a quiet place with few distractions and also some extra time because she needs a lot of breaks to be able to focus on the test. So it teaches kids about invisible disabilities and adults, including teachers and administrators who sometimes I've had administrators throw at me that I'm trying to get extra special privileges for my kid. No, I'm trying to level the playing field so that he has a fighting chance to get decent grades and learn what he's supposed to learn.
Great message.
So,
now, what was the most challenging part about writing this book, if anything?
I think it was trying to merge. There were so many examples from the times that I had to fight for my children. I've lived in 10 different states and 3 different countries. We've been in every kind of school that you can imagine: public, Christian, private schools, international schools. And I've had to fight for something or another in every single one. So it was kind of winnowing down and concentrating the main message into just a few, just a couple of the stories of things that happened to Fiona along the way.
Understandable. And then your third book?
My third book is called Mikey Can't Help It. You can see Mikey in the car seat in the middle there, pitching a tantrum. Well, Fiona and Benny get a little brother that, and he has pretty profound autism. And they love their brother and they love teaching him things and playing with him at home. But when he goes to school, he acts weird. He does things that other puppies don't do. And kids on the playground, puppies on the playground, tease Fiona and Benny and Mikey. This actually happened with my kids. Ben got teased and bullied, And Fiona stood up for him. And then she was told that she has a funny brother. And I think the R word was thrown around. And she balled up her little fist. She was all of like 5 or 6 years old. And she balled up her little fist and she goes, "Don't you talk bad about my brother." And then she turned right around and screamed in Ben's face, "Why can't you just be normal?"
Mm.
And, broke my heart. I had to go, "Honey, if he could act normal, he would act normal, whatever normal is, right?" Because
Right.
we're all weird. Um, but we went to a psychologist that helped us with some communication techniques to help Mikey start to integrate, or in this case, it was really Ben, but in the book, it's Mikey. Mama Bulldog takes the whole family to a psychologist to give them some techniques to start using to help Mikey integrate better into the classroom and school and in public. And she gives Fiona and Benny permission to use the word autism to help explain to other kids and other adults what's going on with their little brother. Because autistic kids look like everybody else, right? They don't have obvious, disabilities like cerebral palsy or Down syndrome or something like that, where you can look at the kid and go, okay, they've got, some special needs going on, let's be kind. So this book is meant to help the parents and the more typical siblings through their feelings about having a child with autism, and also help them begin to incorporate that child into the family and help that child at school with love and compassion and understanding.
Gotcha. And your fourth book that you're currently writing is?
Yes, I've written it. It's in the publisher. It's just waiting to come out. It's called Abby and Jack Aren't Bad Dogs. Mama Bulldog Tackles ADHD. It's such a common diagnosis these days. So many people, so many kids are being diagnosed with it, sometimes inappropriately, but a lot of times it's very real. And I don't know, there's some combination of, doctors and people just being able to identify it better, and maybe an actual increase in the condition in society. And it does tend to run in families. There's a genetic component. So Mama Bulldog gets away from helping her own family, and she helps a family of terriers, Mommy Terrier and Abby, who we meet in the Fiona book, and her little brother, Jack, who's a Jack Russell Terrier and has impulsive hyperactive ADHD. Because doesn't every Jack Russell Terrier? like really, it was like the perfect dog. So it turns out Abby has ADHD, primarily inattentive type. So she just kind of daydreams and drifts off and doesn't pay attention and has trouble organizing herself. And Jack, of course, is biting people and throwing things in class and getting out of his seat and running around. And then we find out that Mommy Terrier has ADHD combined type. So she's a little bit like Abby and a little bit like Jack. And suddenly her whole life makes sense. And Mama Bulldog helps Mommy Terrier in Abby's 504 meeting and in Jack's IEP meeting, and helps advocate for Abby and Jack to get the assistance plans, the help plans, the education plans at school, that they need in order to support them and to help them do better. And even though she struggles with the decision, Mommy also takes the kids to the doctor to see if medication would be helpful. And she decides to try it. And she finds it's very helpful. They all find the medication very helpful for both kids. And once the kids are doing better at school, Mommy takes herself to a psychiatrist who diagnoses her with ADHD and recommends some medication for her as well, and suggests family therapy. So they all go to family therapy. There's a lot in this book. It's a little bit longer than the other three, but not a lot. It's like 4 pages longer. Might take 12 to 15 minutes to read. Again, no chapters, not a lot of words, cute, adorable illustrations. And it helps kids with ADHD and parents with ADHD see themselves and have compassion for each other, and to learn that there is help for them. There are things that they can do and learn and try that can really help them be successful in school. Having a learning disability or ADHD doesn't mean that you're doomed to fail in school or work or life. Not at all. There are some of the most highly successful people out there have ADHD.
And talk to me about your creative process. How long ago did you decide to start with book one?
Oof. Benny Speaks Up was my first book, and Benny was born in about 2018 when I was at a retreat with Jen, my illustrator, and we were talking about my life and my work as a professional education advocate, and we were talking about how to enrich my life and reach more people. And she said, "Well, you talked about writing a book," and she had called me a bulldog once when I was telling her about a case. She said, "Man, you just don't let go, do you? You just sink your teeth into an issue and you won't let it go until something changes." And I said, "That's absolutely right. Plus, I got the jowls to prove it." So that's how Mama Bulldog came to be. And then it was just natural for Mama Bulldog to have little French Bulldog children. And so that's how the family was French Bulldogs. And I decided all the characters should be dogs. And dogs come from all over the world, right? And they're all different colors. And I could get some multiculturalism messages in there. And, everybody should be accepted and welcomed into the school space. So dogs were a really fun and easy way to do that.
Now,
And
what would you?
I'm sorry, we had a lot of fun picking out which dogs played what characters.
Nice.
Like Principal Shepherd, the German Shepherd in Benny's book. Sometimes he barks at kids like he's going to eat them. Benny's a little scared of him. So it was a fun creative process. I really enjoyed it.
Now, what would you say you learned from being an author?
Oh boy. It is not a journey for the faint of heart. There are scam artists out there, left, right, and center. And if you publish a book, people are calling you, wanting to get you to pay them to make your books into a TV show. They promise you to get that they can get you in front of executives from Pixar, and they're scams. There's a whole list of like 1,000 different companies out there that are complete scams. And I was lucky enough to land with Atticus Publishing, who are legitimate and helpful and have really helped me with publicity and taking that step into getting my books known and getting them out there in front of the public and helping people become aware of them. So they help me with my social media, Instagram and TikTok. I'm 60 years old. I don't do that stuff. But that's where the young parents are, right?
True.
That's who I need to reach. So they've helped me tremendously with that.
True. And as we begin to close out, any final thoughts or closing remarks?
My books can be used by teachers in classrooms of kids with and without learning disabilities. Find me a classroom with a kid that doesn't have, one kid in there with some kind of learning disability. But typical kids can benefit from these books too, because they teach compassion and knowledge, and that not all disabilities are visible. So you don't always know what's going on with your next door neighbor in the classroom and why they have to leave you know, for part of a class time and come back, or they need extra time on tests. And it's really good for kids to have that compassion and understanding and empathy. And it helps teachers too. That's why I said Abby and Jack aren't bad dogs, because their teachers end up thinking that they're just horribly behaved dogs with poor parenting. And they even talk about, wish we could give them shock collars to make them behave. And that's kind of mild compared to things that I've actually heard teachers say.
Hmm.
When teachers who don't really have much compassion for kids with ADHD, and just want to punish them, which is not helpful. So good lessons for parents, teachers, administrators, and typical children, as well as helping the children with special needs see themselves in a book.
Nice. And where can they purchase your book at?
My books are available through Amazon. Just search Tracey Tozier or Tracey Lyons Tozier, and they should come up. And my website is mamabulldog.books.com.
Awesome. Well, Trace, I'd like to thank you so much for doing the interview.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. So that's my time today on the Real Rap Radio Show. And I'll see you guys next time on the Real Rap Radio Show with your host, Walil Archer on Downtown Hot Radio. Peace and blessings, everyone.